Welcome back. Brian Shivambu, the brother of economic freedom fighters Deputy President Floyd Shivambu, reportedly signed an agreement to pay back 4.5 million rand that he allegedly received from VBS Bank. An acknowledgement of debt contract reportedly reveals that Brian Shivambu signed the contract in March last year, admitting that he received millions of rands for doing nothing, but this was through VBS services. Now, the so-called VBS Heist, which allegedly linked numerous municipalities, business people and politicians, including allegedly EFF members, among others, to wide-scale looting. To speak a little bit more about this is Pauli Van Wyk, who's an investigative journalist from Daily Mavericks Scorpio unit. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Pauli. So, Brian Shivambu's attorneys insisted on a secrecy clause before he signed, or their client rather, signed an acknowledgement of debt. So how did this information become public?
Good evening. So this acknowledgement of debt that you're referring to is part of a larger process in a Section 217 inquiry, an insolvency inquiry in terms of the Companies Act into Vele Investments, which is the main shareholder of VBS Bank. Now, Advocate Mutal, way back in 2018, told us that Vele Investments and VBS acted together as a criminal enterprise with the single goal to fleece the bank's depositors of their money. So they are in fact one. Now, what happened is that a proper insolvency inquiry calls all the people that received money from this Vele Investments, which included Brian Shivambu. So he received specifically 4.55 million rand in several tranches from Vele. This is a slice of the larger 20 million in loans and cash that he received from VBS-linked companies. Now, this 4.55 million, he was asked questions about. He was asked, why did he receive it? Can he offer any information about what the work he has done for it? And why did he feel he earned it? Now, there was some legal wrangling. And in the end, he signed an acknowledgement of debt. And this acknowledgement of debt says it's a contract saying that there was no underlying reason for receiving the 4.55 million rand. Now, that in lawyers speak is he received money for doing no work at all.
Now, what I also find interesting is he had released a statement, and I think it is in court papers as well, where he said, that he had absolutely no relationship with VBS Bank, that it must be very clear that VBS Mutual Bank had nothing to do with him. He did deal with Vele Investments, but you say in a way that the two are inextricable. So how did it work exactly? As you say, there was an admission that there was no basis for him to receive this money of 4.5 million rand. So what was the legally given reasons for, or at the time specified reasons why he was receiving the money?
Well, right back in 2018, he said that he had some consulting work done regarding some mining for Vele Investments. We now know that he lied to the public when I questioned him about his being named in the VBS report. He received at least around 15 million rand in cash and then some loans from VBS and VBS-linked companies, which was in the end all monies that was actually owned by the depositors, those stockfiles and the trust funds looking after orphans and widows of mine workers that banked at VBS. Now, he took the money. It was dumped into Shameka Projects, which is his company. And from there, it was sent to two front companies, Mahuna Investments and Grandizania, which when I analyzed where the money went to, I realized that the beneficiaries of these monies were the EFF, the party itself, the fourth party birthday bash in Umlazi was funded by the VBS money. And then obviously Floyd Shivambu and Julius Malema. It funded, for example, the Range Rover that Floyd bought. It funded the house in Sandown, Sandton, Johannesburg that Julius bought. It funded jewelry and luxury clothes and groceries and their political aspirations. So the money in the end wasn't Brian's. I could see that he utilized preciously little, maybe a few 100,000 or so, if that much, for his own needs. What he was actually doing is to be the face of the company and not the ultimate runner or the owner of the company, and most definitely not the beneficiary.
Pauli, is there irrefutable proof or paper trail evidence of the Gameka funds, where they led to? And I also want to talk about the bank chairman, Matotsi, who is said to have described this Gameka Project's bank account as extremely strategic. Also take us through that. What did that mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. So all that I'm telling you is detailed in bank statements, messages, cell phone messages between various players in this cartel, and obviously documents at the bank, at VBS Mutual Bank. So we are looking at the money flows and the ultimate beneficiaries and who utilized the money to realize who was actually in the end behind it all. Now, what you are referring to relating to Shifiwa Matotsi, the chair, and obviously the person being accused of orchestrating the implosion and the main beneficiary of the implosion at VBS, he sent messages to Poppy Mukudubwani, who was the treasurer at VBS at the time, saying that Gameka Projects is a very strategic account for VBS. And then later he also said, please send them money. It is for lobbying fees. Now, Brian, now we know that he says there was no work done for the money. And we have to take Mr. Matotsi at his word when he says lobbying fees paid towards the EFF leaders were the actual reason for the money flowing out of VBS Bank.
Okay. Now, there's also a very important point here, and that is the 4.5 million rand that Gameka owed to various services. I believe that that's been fully repaid. Can you confirm that, and do we know where the money came from to pay this?
I spoke to Richard Pollack, who is the curator of LA Investments, who confirmed that all the money, the 4.55 million, was being repaid. It's important to say that none of the criminal charges should be obsolete by now. It doesn't make any charges obsolete. The NPA and the Hawks must still do their work, and they must follow the money trail because the crime hasn't been sanitized. The crime has been committed. And yes, so Matotsi and a few other leaders, 15 of them, has been arrested so far by the Hawks and has pleaded not guilty. One person, the CFO Treter, Philip Treter, has pleaded guilty, and he will testify against all the others.
Okay. Once again, I'm not sure if you answered this, Pauli, but do we know where the money came back for the payback? And was this the only payback, or were there other monies owed?
So we don't know where the money ultimately came. It apparently went through several attorneys' trust accounts. So I cannot tell you at this moment who is bankrolling Brian Shivambu and obviously obfuscating the beneficiaries of the money, which is Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu. There is other money that he needs to pay back. The very first tranche was a loan that he paid back of around 2 million rand. We also don't know who bankrolled him there. So this is the second tranche of 4.5 million. And then we found a total of around 20 million in loans and cash. And the sum of it hasn't been paid back yet.
Pauli Van Wyk is investigative journalist from the Daily Mavericks Scorpio unit.